All right, good evening. It is 5 p.m. I'd like to call this meeting to order, and we start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, so next on our agenda is the floor to the public. The Oswego City School District's... Oh, sorry. Tom Chiappa.
Here.
Dave Crisafulli. Here. Pamela Dowd. Here. Jim McKenzie.
Here.
Sean Onmecht.
Here.
Heidi Sweeney.
Here.
Maura Dempsey.
Here.
And Lisa Glidden. Okay. All right, floor to the public. The Oswego City School District's Board of Education welcomes public comment at this portion of the meeting. To maintain an orderly and efficient meeting, the board has established the following guidelines for those wishing to address the board. Each speaker who is signed up is permitted 3 minutes for their comments. Speakers may not yield remaining time to others. All comments must be directed to the board president. The board will listen to comments and input, but will not necessarily discuss or debate items. Operational matters will be directed to the school administration for handling. The board is not permitted to address personnel or individual student matters in open session. The board will limit repetitive comments in order to give time to others wishing to speak, as well as to maintain meeting efficiency. The board president has the authority to end a speaker's comments or to close public comment as appropriate. Any additional written correspondence or letters may be directed to the board clerk for distribution to the board, and the board expects proper decorum at all times. I'll just end by saying, before we open the floor, we normally have 15 minutes allotted for floor to the public. We've got more than that signed up today, so we're going to go for 30 minutes, and then we'll see where we are and do a vote to continue the public comment as necessary. Okay, so first on the list is Jackie Wallace.
My name is Jackie Wallace, and I have been the FLS homeschool president for the last 7 years. Our daughter is currently in 5th grade, and we have a senior who is a Layton alum and one of the top 5 in his class, which is not uncommon for a Layton Elementary alumni. I want to start by thanking the board for allowing this time for our community to share their voices with you regarding the repurposing of our school. You have a difficult decision to make that will have a long-lasting impact on our students and our community. At this time, all the boxes have been checked, but while so many voices have still left been unheard. I hope that we can remedy that today with the stories that we'll share with you. Since I have been involved in homeschool, we've had multiple conversations regarding closing elementary school. We experienced a brief sigh of relief when the Ed Center was sold, and we finally got a break from the stress and anxiety of the potential losing our school and place that our families call home. They was short-lived when we had felt the pressure this fall as administrative professionals were pushing into the school the past couple of years. We had brought the concerns forefront to the board, thinking about how our special education and support services has started to lose much needed space due to the addition of new positions. I highly encourage the board to seek feedback from the experts in our building who are doing the work every day and have the impact of losing additional spaces when our students are dispersed amongst the district, not just from the administration who also come to visit. There seems to be a lack of trust and fear of retaliation amongst our staff, so please find a safe place where those voices feel confident in sharing their feedback and concerns. Many students need special accommodations, and pushing into the classroom will further disrupt their progress. Our experts are well-versed in the science and needs of our students and can guide you in making data-informed decisions prior to a decision that can easily be undone and would dramatically impact our students' learning. After all, 2 of our core beliefs are students come first, everyone can learn and grow. I'd also like to speak on the belief to strive to ensure equity and create access and opportunity for all. As you're looking to plan to move our Layton Elementary learners, the current redistricting plan does not appear to align with that belief. I was part of the parent group that involved getting Layton Elementary back on track nearly 10 years ago when we were a focus school and my son was attending Layton. We still qualify as Title I school with an average of 70 to sometimes 74% of our students being considered economically disadvantaged. Many of our students are able to engage in before and after school activities like intramurals, band, family night, open houses, as we are a neighborhood school that's easily accessible. That may not be the case when our students are bused far outside of their neighborhood. We also have great partnerships with high schoolers who come in, and we have the privilege of having so many mentors right across the street. I also think about the long-lasting economic impact of losing one of our neighborhood schools in our community. In addition, an updated and equitable redistricting plan that encompasses all the students in our district should be considered. Let's not forget, just this past year, we're slowly phasing back to an in-person instruction, recovering from a global pandemic. COVID is not far behind us. We can still see it in the rearview mirror. It is our district's belief we will provide a safe environment that supports, engages all students. I know many of the members of our community will have insights to share with you today. My hope is that you will take all the information and stories to heart. After all, the best decisions are made with using both our heart and our minds, and the focus can't just be on how much money can we save. The price you're willing to pay at the detriment of our students' learning and overall being. Students come first. Thank you for your time.
Next is Kara Murray.
Good evening. Can you hear me? Good evening. I'm the parent of a kindergartner, a third grader, and a fifth grader at FLS. I have my bachelor's degree in elementary education with a middle school math extension from SUNY Oswego and a master's degree in educational leadership from Stetson University in Florida. I taught middle school math in a Title I school in Kissimmee, Florida, with 95% of the students living below the poverty line. I want to be clear that I'm not here on the behalf of my own children. My kids will be fine. They will be devastated if they have to change schools, but they will have support and resources available to them. I am here to advocate for their peers, many of whom have not been spoken for. 70% of the students at FLS are living below the poverty line. That's approximately 210 of the 300 students at Layton. Those 200 students are the ones who will be most affected by this redistricting. Where are the advocates for these kids tonight? I'll tell you. Many are working because it's 5 o'clock right now. Or they're home with their kids because childcare is expensive along with everything else these days. Many of them have much greater worries than we can even fathom, and Layton closing isn't even on their radar. I know because 30 years ago or so, I would have been among those 70% of kids. My mom was a single parent working multiple jobs to make ends meet and protecting her kids from an alcoholic abusive parent. She would have had no idea that Layton was even about to close. So like many parents today, she was barely able to keep her head above water. I'd like you to take a look around this room and note the number of teachers that are here to support these kids. Why haven't we heard from them? I'll tell you. They have been asked not to speak. Many have sent me messages pleading to let you know that they have been asked not to speak. Their silence is not to say they're in support of closing Layton, but instead speaks volumes about the culture of retaliation within this district. Have you considered how many of these teachers are also parents in this district? So here I am, raising a little red flag for the kids. If you recall the redistricting boundaries presented by the transportation, there was a quarter-mile yellow section on the map. According to the presentation, there are about 100 FLS students living within the yellow section on that map who will be bused approximately 2.3 miles away to Riley, which is another Title I school in Oswego. There is a pink section on the map that also includes many rentals. It is adjacent to the yellow section. There are 100 students in that section as well, based on projected numbers to FITSU next year.
Okay.
That's
10 more seconds,
200 of 263 FLS students being bused across town to other Title I schools.
Okay. Thank you. And we did, for those in the audience, Kara did also send this to us in writing. And if you're okay with it, we can share it and put it up on the website.
No, I'm not okay with that.
Okay.
Because I have other things to say in here. And I'm Erica Buck, and I yield my time for Kara.
Okay, we don't actually normally yield time. We have a lot of other people who want to speak, and we do want to give voice to people.
Then can I keep reading hers?
You can keep reading hers, sure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I got it.
Yeah. So you're Erica? Erica?
Yes.
Buck? Okay.
Yes, thank you. To continue, here I am waving that little red flag because knowing these neighborhoods, this does not make education accessible or equitable for many of these students on their families. How many of these 200 kids are part of that 210 living below the poverty line at FLS? Have any of you walked around these neighborhoods in that little yellow blip on the map? Have you noticed the number of low-income rentals in that area? Have you driven past the children walking from these neighborhoods to before-school programs at 7:35, such as the Boys and Girls Intramurals and Student Council, or walking home after school band practice? Have you driven by the families walking to and from family nights that include literacy night, bingo night, STEM night, etc.? No, I have. Some walk because they can. Sure, they live nearby. What a wonderful concept to live near a school that your children attend. Many walk out of necessity. These are the students and the families who will be impacted most when their neighborhood is no longer in their neighborhood. With gas prices as high as they are, even families who have access to a vehicle are having to decide whether it's worth going to certain events. Have you seen your child's classmates wearing hand-me-downs that are clearly too big, or see their excuse me, I'm gonna skip this little part. At the beginning of the pandemic, before the district delivered meals, did you happen to witness elementary age kids struggling to walk home with multiple giant brown paper bags full of breakfast, lunch, and cartons of milk and juice for themselves and their siblings? Did you incidentally witness students being cussed at and berated by an adult in their home during a Google Meet when a microphone was left unmuted? No, I have. Last year, my friend's son in FLS kindergarten was choking, and his teacher had to perform the Heimlich maneuver on him, ultimately saving his life. This child's mother had to run from her place of work to Layton when she received the call because her husband uses their one vehicle to work out of town. Imagine being that mom in that situation. Now imagine the school and your child being even further away. I'm telling you this to show you the reality for many of our FLS families. Our students and their families have had enough obstacles to contend with. We don't need to create more. Most individuals in the field of education are familiar with the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. The shortened version of this theory is that both physiological and psychological needs must be met in order for humans to reach their highest potential. Picture a triangle where the foundation is made up of basic physiological needs. These are things humans need to survive: air, food, water, shelter, eventually builds up to things like heat, clothing, and safety. The theory goes that humans will strive for those basic needs before anything else. The middle tiers, the triangle of physiological
10
needs:
seconds.
safety, security, belonging, and love, relationships, and connection. Please note that safety is both a physical and physiological need.
So, next up is Sarah Nelson.
Okay, I was going to read with Kara's as well, but since you guys have that, I'm going to read something on behalf of someone else who wrote. I would like to clarify a few things tonight in regards to the preschool program. There are currently preschools housed in Kingsford, Fitzhugh, Layton, Riley, and Minetto. Layton is unique because it has the only full-day pre-K program. These 16 students are chosen by a lottery to determine who will get into the program. Therefore, any Layton kids will naturally have to be dispersed to the other preschoolers. Riley typically gets a lot of overflow pre-K students, and many students in the Layton area who are not in the full-day program end up there. Otherwise, at Kingsford, Minetto, and Fitzhugh, the majority of students attending are at their home schools. At these 3 schools, there are a total of 80 students in the UPK program, and 3 of them will go to Layton, 7 of them will attend a different school, and 70 of them will stay in their home schools. If we subtract the 3 going to Layton, that would mean that 91% of the preschool students are at their own school. This means that 91% of those students are going to be getting to know the staff, the rituals and routines of that school, which is so important to foster a successful learning experience. I know that busing is always an issue, and right now, the pre-K AM students have the option of being bused to school in the morning, and the pre-K PM students have the option of being bused home from the school in the afternoon. If all the pre-K students were moved into one building, I would imagine the district would have to offer busing to and from for the AM kids as well as for the PM kids. And what about those pre-K kids who are 3 and because of New York State law cannot legally ride the bus until they turn 4? Parents on the east side or across the bridge may not have the means of driving their child out of their way across town to get to school in the morning. And what happens to these children? Are they excluded from the program until they turn 4? It seems to me that the way things are right now doesn't add much extra work for transportation officials. I am sure of the preschool kids that ride to school with siblings and ride home with siblings in the afternoon, which in turn only adds a few extra stops for those pre-K kids who happen to ride the bus and don't have siblings. Thank you for taking time to listen what I know about the current pre-K program.
Thank you, Sarah. Okay, next up is Becky Waters.
Good evening. My name is Becky Waters, and I live in the Oswego City School District with my husband and our 3 children. My children currently attend the high school, middle school, and Layton Elementary. I've had at least 1 child at Layton for the past 11 years. I've witnessed how Layton is more than just a building to many students. I'm also an accountant by profession and in charge of the budget office at an area college. So I know all too well what the board is going through trying to make decisions of this magnitude. It's not easy to make financial decisions when there's so much emotion wrapped around a topic as important as education. However, in my 20 years in that world, I've learned to always keep in mind you need to look at more than just the dollars and cents. You also need to question everything that is presented to you and not always take it for its face value. Dig in and listen to all points of view on the subject. Look for true efficiencies presented and make sure what you think you are saving will not cost you more at a later date. I do not believe moving forward with this plan to repurpose Layton aligns with the district's core beliefs, as you've stated should be guiding your principals when making the decisions for the district. I'm going to break it down why I see it that way. The first core belief you have is we ensure equity and access and opportunity for all. The map that was presented as a redistricting option does not ensure equity and create access for all. In particular, I found it to segregate a vulnerable population of our students. What I'm referring to is the yellow blip in a section of the current Layton area that will be bused over to Riley in this plan. Anyone on the board tour that area or know the socioeconomic status of most of the families that live in that small area singled out on the map? Well, if not, I'll share with you as someone whose children have attended this school for the past 11 years. Those children you will see walking intramurals, they and their families will walk into open house, dances, or to bring their sick child home from school. You know why? Because they don't have reliable transportation. This plan takes some of the district's most disenfranchised families and forces their children to go to school that quite frankly couldn't be further from their home. It's not walkable distance in the wintertime or really any time if you're talking about small children. Neighborhood schools serve a purpose. If the need to close an elementary is there, why not look at an entire redistrict of the school district so that everyone can remain in their neighborhood school they have access to? Why is it okay to single out sections of our population who need assistance the most in order to not disrupt others? That to me is not okay, and it doesn't align with these core beliefs. The other core belief is we provide a safe environment that supports and engages learners. I think we can all agree that the last 3 years have been tough on everyone, especially children, and even more so those families I just referenced. To quote saying used by our superintendent over the last few years, these unprecedented times call for us to act out of an abundance of caution. So why would we not continue to allow our students to reacclimate back to school after COVID in their home classroom or in another elementary school without increasing the number of students in that classroom? Another core belief is data and evidence inform our decisions. There's been significant documented learning loss over the past 3 years, and quite frankly, our district has had poor test scores and graduation rates prior to the pandemic. Is now the time to increase class sizes and see how many students we can load into a building?
10 more seconds.
Students come first. This struck me the most and why it's at the end of my list. I feel like I've said so many times over the years that the Oswego City School District makes decisions based on adults in the room rather than children. Please prove me wrong this time. Make the decisions where the students come first. Take time to evaluate what's being presented to you, ask questions, and have discussions on those with the building. Visit the buildings and see the proposed spaces that they are going to put these students. Go for a drive through that neighborhood in that little yellow bit, and then clock the distance to that school, and you tell me if you would want to walk that in January.
Okay, thank you. And if you'd like to leave that with the district clerk, we can make sure that everyone has copies of it so we can read the rest. Mackenzie Joyce.
Hello, my name is Mackenzie Joyce. I'm a 7th grader at OMS. I used to go to Layton Elementary School. As I grew up, I never stayed at the same school. My sister, though, Caitlin Joyce, has stayed at the same school since kindergarten, and I have never gotten that chance. Everyone knows her there, and she has friends from the kindergarten. This last Thursday, I was at Layton during a performance. I saw people I knew from there. I have so many connections, and in the future, I would love to go back to school. Since I'm in 7th grade, what will happen when I graduate high school? Will I get to do the walkthrough? I know a lot of teachers there. As most of them were walking in, I knew most of them. I waved to them. Layton is my forever home. It's where I did chorus with Ms. Myers, played my flute, and I did all county, where I met some of my friends for a lifetime. And I have so many memories there. I just want my sister to have many memories of that. That's why I wanted her to stay there until 6th grade. You should not repurpose this school.
Caitlin Joyce.
Hello, my name is Caitlin Joyce, and I am a 3rd grader at Layton Elementary School. The reason why I came here at the Board of Education meeting is to talk about why you should not repurpose my school. I want to talk about my friends going to different schools. Let's say I go to Kingsford, Dahlia, she went to Fitzhugh, and Amelia goes to Minetto, and Eden goes to Raleigh, and all my other friends go to different schools. So then I would have to make new friends. I have no problem making friends, but I would like to see my now friends every day in school. Just because it's saving money doesn't mean you should repurpose my school. To me, Layton means that I can see my friends and my teachers every day and learn about my favorite subjects from my favorite people. So please do not repurpose my school because Layton is a family. You should not separate a family. Thank you.
Thank you, Caitlin. Kevin Joyce.
Read a statement that was prepared for me. Dear Board of Education members, I am a teacher in the district and I'm using this opportunity to comment on our superintendent and the upper administration in our district. The superintendent hired several new administrators to replace one person. None of our new administrators are on the same page, have the same message, or communicate with one another. When there is a question, you are directed all over the education center to get an answer because no one is able to answer questions. The superintendent does not lead with the buck stops with him. Rather, he extends the blame to those around him. He delegates his work out so if there is an error, mistake, or problem, he has someone he can point the finger at. By not having the administrators under him, he would be the only one accepting responsibility. So the administrators are all for his benefit. The superintendent will stress that these jobs were necessary and needed. Funny how for many, many years we didn't have these jobs, yet on the educational end of things, we're getting done. Pre-COVID, Oswego's test scores fall in line with the other schools in the county. He is proposing to close the school and disrupt over 300 students and their families at Layton, but also every other elementary school in the district. Plain and simple, this is a decision that benefits adults. He is trying to pin it on the Board of Ed, and again, he bears no responsibility. Also, why did districts send out the community feedback on the closing repurposing if they didn't heed to it? 90% of the feedback from the survey did not support the proposal. Many parents, teachers, and community members cited specific reasons such as overcrowding, transportation, sickness, and COVID recovery as their objections to go through with the proposal. However, since it didn't support what the superintendent wants, no attention was given to it. The community focus group has not had their questions answered or addressed. Why did the community that put out the recommendations, why did the company that put out the recommendations, that had multiple errors in it, by the way, run the focus group? Isn't that a conflict of interest? The point is, all of this is for show, and Dr. Calvin is going to do whatever he wants, regardless of community input. The president of the board at our opening day repeatedly used the phrase, what's best for kids, and no matter what, kids come first. I see that it was nothing more than lip service after her comments, support, and actions on closing and repurposing of Layton Elementary students and family. This decision will not only harm students in many ways socially, it would be offering less opportunities for all students, increasing class sizes across the district, do absolutely nothing to offer students more support and attention. Students that are able to attend intramurals and student council will no longer be able to due to transportation issues. A large number of students that attend Layton are currently underprivileged. However, the district feels that the students should move out in order to have more room for administration. Doesn't this go exactly against what our president of the board professed in our opening day speech? Also, teachers in elementary will become more transient in grade levels as the numbers at each grade varies. In 1 year, third grade will need 4 sections, and fourth grade 3 sections. The next year, third grade would need 3 sections, and fourth grade would need 4. Teachers are going to get bounced around from grade level to grade level. Does the president of the board feel this is what's best for the kids? I'd like to remind the board that they work for the citizens of the community, not the superintendent. Many of our board members are blindly going with the superintendent's ridiculous proposal as opposed to listening to the community and the people that this haphazard decision will truly affect. A simple Google search will show that Dr. Calvin has a history of doing this exact thing before.
So
He was
let's try
successful
to
with
keep
his-
it impersonal.
I'm just reading what was given to me, so.
Well,
A
let's
simple
be
Google
a
search will show
critical
that Dr.
thinker,
Calvin
and you
has a
can
history of
skip
doing this
forward,
exact thing
and we try
before.
not to have ad
He was
hominem
successful with
attacks
this at
on
Free Will
people.
Elementary School. He disrupted the community by closing a school.
Okay, and
Asked for
that's
a 5-year
time. Thank you very much, Mr. Joyce. You're welcome to leave it with the clerk, and we'll take a look. Jennifer Cahill.
Good evening, everyone. I stand here representing 186 members of the Oswego Classroom Teachers Association who work in our 5 elementary buildings and wish to speak to you regarding the proposed vote to repurpose Frederick Elementary School. The ACTA membership vowed to remain neutral about this impactful decision until all the information had been shared and all of the questions that people had were answered. After all, over the past 20 years, we have witnessed the toll of this controversial discussion has taken on our staff, students, and community, and the outpouring of input the community has offered over the years regarding the impact that closing a school would have on our district and our city. Our best position would be to listen to what is presented before offering our professional input in the impact this new plan would have on our schools and our students. To that end, we have patiently listened to the often confusing and sometimes erroneous data presented at the last few board meetings, and we were ready to receive more clarifications and details about the plan at tonight's meeting. However, we heard through social media that the board would be asked to take a vote tonight on moving forward with a plan to close Layton. We did not anticipate that this vote would be done in such haste and expected additional conversations would ensue between the months of November and December before this untimely thing was put to a vote. We especially believe that the district leadership would meet with the teaching staff at each building in order to deliver the specifics about how such a drastic change in our district would impact the children and the learning environment at each elementary school. Unfortunately, the staff at Riley, Fitzhugh, and Kingsford never received a visit or an opportunity to hear about the redistricting plans firsthand. All of the information about this plan thus far has been gained from what we have sought on our own by volunteering to be the one representative for their building in the focus group, or by reading the studies, the FAQs, or watching the board meetings. The building administrators have only been able to share so much, and we were patiently waiting for the opportunity to hear directly how this plan would be implemented in our schools. We never would have expected a vote to be called before all invested parties had been personally informed about the impact this would have on our school. Our members greatly respect and appreciate our administrative team and our Board of Education, and we wanted this process to unfold unimpeded, so we did not take a formal stance on the proposal in order to stay out of the politics that are associated with making such a big decision. However, when our members learned that this was going to a vote so quickly, they immediately reached out to the union leadership with questions and concerns that they felt had not been addressed. The outpouring of the intense concern and the request for a vote of our own ramped up upon seeing the Facebook post, and a survey was created Friday in order to determine where our elementary OCTA members stood regarding this proposal. The poll requested that they identify their level of support for the proposal to repurpose Layton School. The votes were 83% that do not support the closure of FLS.
10 more seconds.
13% were neutral about the decision because they didn't feel they had enough information to make a sound decision or clearly to understand how it would be impacted upon our district and our students. Only 4% are for the proposal. For the sake of time, I am going to give you a list of the concerns and questions that were attached to this document and give you each a copy. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share this information with you in your vote tonight. I respectfully ask that you do what you feel is best for the students this evening and reject this proposal. The time is not right to relocate our students. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. Okay, next up is Zoe.
Hello, my name's Zoe, and I'm in 5th grade, and I am struggling in reading, writing, and spelling since 1st grade. If you decide to close Layton, there will not be enough one-on-one time to learn and get me caught up in my class.
Thank you, Zoe. You did a great job reading that. That was really good. Okay, next up is Ashley Fatisa, or Fatiga.
I'm Ashley. I have 2 kids that go to Riley, and I want to thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak tonight. I want to read something right from the study to start. While hard data such as numbers, facilities, and grade configurations contribute significant facts to study findings, it is important to recognize that emotions contribute as well. The fabric of schools and communities is directly related to the emotional connection people have with them. The emotions are much as fact as they are hard data. I participated in the community focus group on the 29th, and I'm not here to dispute the data, although most of the data that was presented needs more context and some more clarification. For example, the study states that the district has 10 administrators. However, since the conclusion of the study, more positions have been created. I would, however, like to address the execution of this process and, quite frankly, ask you all what was the point of this focus group. The 4th recommendation in the study reads, and I quote, "It is recommended that the district engage its community and its architect in the planning and discussion of facilities needs and options as soon as possible." Our community came together and asked several valid questions, none of which were answered. We are disappointed and extremely disheartened by the absence of any follow-up to our questions or concerns. We all gathered together, parents, teachers, and community members, some of who are doctors or former educators. It was very clear from our conversations that we are an educated group dedicated to our students and our community and are eager and willing to provide our input and ideas. We took this opportunity seriously. We looked at the data and we asked valid questions. Again, what was the point in asking these questions if there was no intention of answering them? I would like to make it clear that the focus group was not meant to simply just check a box for community involvement. And if the board goes forward with its vote on the future of FLS tonight and inherently the rest of all our elementary students, without acknowledging the feedback from the group that they asked for, it shows utter disregard for the community that they asked for input from. But here's our opportunity to change that narrative so that we can all work together and make sure that we are making the right strategic decisions to ensure that our students receive an optimal education, and when they leave us, they are fully prepared and life ready. Thank you.
Thank you. And I do actually want to clarify, all of the questions were answered and are up on the website on the 4-part efficiency study. They are. Okay, so when we finish here, I know Arvind is up next. When we finish here, maybe we can pull it up so I can show people where, and I know that I've sent a link to many people who've written to us as well. Arvind Didi, go ahead, sorry.
Good evening, Board of Education members, Superintendent, and my community members. First, I would like to appreciate your time and effort in this process. And then I'm standing here not simply with emotions, but I'm trying to empathize with you because you are the decision makers. And I have a few questions in terms of, this is not questioning you, but this is a process of cross-checking questions, because any professional decision-making process has, in fact, encourages cross-checking. Are we on the right track? So these questions are meant to be that, okay? So first off, I have this, that the biggest question we have right now, do we maintain the status quo or go with the change? That's not an easy answer, right? So if change has to happen, is it a must, or do we maintain the status quo? Then we are talking about this 4-part study. So my question is, how thoroughly the internal validity of this 4-part comprehensive study being rechecked and cross-checked? Because internal validity is the core of any study. If that is not right, then the outcome, don't expect the outcome to be right, okay? And then third question, what efforts were being made what efforts were being made to take professional second opinion on the study findings and recommendations? Is there any, because this is a huge decision, so we can't simply go with one study or one-time data. What second opinion, professional second opinion are you seeking? Fourth, among these recommendations, was closing of FLS the lowest hanging fruit? That was another question, because as you are hearing from the community members, so, and then what efforts were being made to recheck and cross-check the likely and unlikely possibility of type 1 and type 2 errors, that is false positive or false negatives in your findings. There are likely blind spots. Is that being cross-checked? And what would be the short-term and long-term implications of these decisions that you're going to make? And before I conclude, the part here is you are in a position now to make a difference. You are in a position of power. And then how thoroughly are you cross-checking that process? And how thoroughly, because you're saying right now there's a question that all our questions are not answered. In fact, I looked, there are questions that are answered, but are these answers really giving those answers to those questions? I teach content analysis. If my student asks, Professor, what is content analysis? I can easily say it's analysis of content, and I've given the answer. Today's session is reminding me of US history of the time when I was not here, neither I was born, when draft was reinstated, right? How was the community feeling? No one says I'm not patriot, but then how we went about it. So that makes a difference. And finally, are we doing it right? That's my question. Thank you.
Thank you, Arvind. Shauna Vaken? What is it? Oh, sorry.
That's okay. Hi, I'm Shauna, and I'm speaking on behalf of a teacher from the district. I was in favor of closing Layton in the past. It seemed like it would be just a few kids added here and there. The school is small, right? However, this is not the reality. As a teacher at Fitzhugh and Riley, who has been part of construction moves, the space for these additional classes does not exist in a reality of quality education. Classes should not be taught in hallways, cafeterias, stages, corners, or closets because they are small, such as AIS math, reading, and speech. It is impossible to focus in these situations. Specials should not be traveling on a cart. That is where these classrooms will come from. I foresee that after teaching classes in hallways is accepted as a terrible idea, AIS services will get their rooms back in a few years and class sizes will increase to fit kids in. What will the result to our students' education be by then? They are behind now. Their greater inability to focus because of where they are taught will make them even more behind. And then what? Magic? More administrators? Keep Layton open. Our population needs enclosed physical spaces in which to learn, not hallways. Thank you.
Melissa Kurdici? Sorry. Oh, Kubicki. Got it.
Good evening, Superintendent, board members. There has been a lot of discussion about possibly closing Layton Elementary over the years. We have heard from stakeholders, parents, and graduates on this matter. Though we heard a statement from their union tonight, there is a group that currently does not seem to have a voice, however. Teachers, the people we as parents send our kids to daily, the people that we trust with our kids over any other person in this district. They are the experts when it comes to our children. If students are the heart of the school, then teachers are its soul. Not hearing from our teachers is highly concerning and off-putting, not only as a parent, but a graduate and a stakeholder. While the study talked heavily about ways to save money, it did not look at how it will affect people within the district. For this, you need an educational impact statement. You need the voice of our teachers, guidance counselors, and psychologists. If you are of the mindset that no news is good news, I ask you to challenge that thought. As someone whose job it was to go into a business and assess the culture and environment, then plan and work toward a more transparent, healthier environment, I can tell you that no news is always bad news. If your key people, such as our teachers, do not have a voice, it is often a sign of a toxic and hostile environment. I ask you to actively seek out their input in an open and honest forum, not at a board meeting where there cannot be open discussion, not on a thought exchange or a small part of a focus group where their voices cannot be heard. They need a real voice. Honestly, if our teachers across the district were on board with us, I personally would trust that that is the best thing for our students. I have not gotten that impression, though. I urge you to find out what their thoughts are on this and actively listen to their input before any decision is made. I will leave you with this. We have a saying as leaders: if we fail them, then we fail. In this instance, it goes further and is much more dire. If we fail our teachers, we fail our students. I am not willing to fail our teachers and students. Are you?
All right, so we are over the time. Normally, we're at 43 minutes of public comment. Is there a motion? We've got 7 more speakers.
Yeah, I'll move to extend time.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, multiple. Any discussion? All in favor? Okay. Okay. Savani? Nelson? Jeremy? Sorry. Little tail on the J there, sorry.
It's pretty simple. First, I'd like to thank you for your time. I didn't come with a prepared speech, but I'm going to kind of change up what I wanted to talk about just because I don't want to repeat the majority of what everybody said. What I'd like to just kind of tell you is a little quick about me. When I got married, we had a choice. We could have settled in a lot of different places around the area. And when my wife and I made the decision, I influenced a lot of it because I wanted to come up with kids eventually, and thankfully we'd have two, and I wanted them to come up in a good school district. And I grew up here. I've lived here almost my entire life, and I was very proud to be a Buck. And I don't know how many of you are from the area, where your school was like, but being a Buck really meant something. And I liked the fact that we had a very good school district. Unfortunately, I was very young when we made the decision, and I didn't understand a lot of the dynamics that go into a school district. So I understand you guys have a lot of hard decisions that you have to make on a regular basis, but the big question I'd like to know is, how did we get to this point? When I grew up in the school district, like I said, we didn't have all these problems, the concerns. I understand the political aspect, I understand the economic aspect, what the town used to have, what the town doesn't have now. But somewhere along the way, you or your predecessors have made decisions that have not led us on a good path. And to take the students the way they are now, my two children both attend Layton, and one of them has been severely impacted over the things, but what has helped them is that the teachers in the school, some of them are neighborhood teachers, and they have formed very good bonds. And I feel like if you separate them from the school at this point in time, those bonds will be lost. And it's going to make it very difficult, not only for them, but every other student in the school to continue to grow and develop and get past these little bumps that we've had along the way. But I'd like to kind of get an understanding going forward. There needs to be more transparency with the public, where you say these questions, the answers are there. Some of us have had to really, really dig to find those answers. It didn't come easy. And unfortunately, there was a lot of people that didn't even understand what was going on until it was kind of almost too late to react and get an understanding. And I feel like a lot of stuff is done behind closed doors, and we're not getting the things that we need to be involved as parents. Now, I understand, like I said, you have a very hard decision to make, but I hope you guys really think about it from the impact of the students, first and foremost, and how is this going to affect our school district going forward? Because you could close the school, but it doesn't sound to me like saving $1 million right now is really going to benefit us in the long term, because somewhere down the line, something else is going to have to happen, and it doesn't sound we're planning very much. So I ask that you guys really kind of take a look at what your decision is going to do and where you want to go going forward, please. And involve us.
Tricia Tynan?
I was going to give my time to someone else, so I would like to forfeit that right now to give someone else time to speak.
Is it someone who'd signed up or someone who?
Someone who has previously spoken and was asking for extra time.
Yeah, so I'm sorry, well, especially since we didn't do it for Kara earlier. It's not our, if you want to take, if she has like something written and you want to read, I see the.
I have like 3 paragraphs, Fred.
All right, Brian St. Ange.
All right, well, thank you for the time. And I'll try to keep it quick because I know you extended, so I appreciate that. And a lot of what they said, as Jeremy just said, was what I was going to cover. So I knew we were going to hear a lot of passionate speeches and stories tonight. I wanted to spend a little bit of time last night, went through the stuff that's posted on the website, right? All the studies and the documents. And so I have a couple questions and considerations just to make sure that we're thinking through as we go through this and that we've done this. So a couple things. When I looked at the report from November 1st, and it talks all about the unused spaces, right? The building usage information. And it's at page 44, it has a bunch of the number of office or classrooms that are empty. it almost goes back to what the OCT was saying. Have we really consulted with them? Because I know a number of teachers, and I've been in the schools. Is it really empty, or are they being used in other ways and shuffled around in many different ways? I think we'd be surprised that even though it says that there's 4 or 5, 6 empty classrooms, that they might not truly be empty and they actually could be being used, but instead we're using hallways and stages and lunchrooms and things like that for certain things instead. So just kind of thinking through, and I know that the focus group, one of the recommendations was for the board to visit the schools and kind of see that and tour the schools and make sure that they were aware. So I'm hoping that's taken into consideration before a vote is made on there. One of the other things that was on there, which was really interesting, was the regional class size data. And it, you know, again, back of the envelope, some mathematics, so don't hold me to these numbers here, but I thought it was really interesting that we kind of fell in the middle for the average class size. If I just took those numbers and averaged it out, we were right in the middle of all of those, right? Which is really great. And I was like, that's great. I went to the New York Education website. Of everyone that was on that table, I think there's 7 other school districts there listed, we had the lowest 4-year graduation rate of every school listed at that table at 81%. The highest was 90, the average was 86. So to me, again, you know, it's great that we're talking about redistrict, and that we can keep, if we're gonna redistrict or not redistrict, if we're gonna repurpose, you're trying to keep the classrooms the same. Does that really even get us even closer to our graduation rate? Probably not. Could we use that space more efficiently? Could we do something else, right, with that? It seems like we're being a little short-sighted, to Jeremy's point, that if we have the lowest out of that table of graduation rate, shouldn't we be trying to actively do something to get that higher, to catch up with Fulton, Central Square, APW, all the other ones listed there in some way? And it feels like this does not get us to that point. That's all. So I'll let you guys have that.
Was Eliza? Yeah. Good, okay.
First, hi, I'm Eliza St. Ange. The question was, when were the questions from the focus group and the answers posted?
I think they were put up on the Monday. After yesterday morning. No, they were put up on Monday after the focus, Monday or Tuesday after the focus group, because we got the reports from the focus group facilitators, and we got the questions, we were able to see the questions and answers.
We had a meeting on Tuesday, and you said they would be posted by Friday, so that's inaccurate.
And we have a printout, and it's a dated printout of 11/14 of the FAQs.
Yeah.
No, the focus group information, so we had a Board of Education meeting. The report was shared with the board. I said in the board meeting that I would be putting that information up as soon as possible, which I did the following week. I believe it was on Tuesday morning, if I remember correctly. So all of that was posted to the website with a full scale. It actually had a top title on it that said focus group response. That did not just happen this week. That is incorrect, ma'am, with all due respect.
Well, we weren't notified, so nobody.
There was also a letter that was sent out to the focus group, a follow-up letter that I sent following right after. It was sent by, wasn't the letter sent out by email to all of the focus group members? Okay, so everybody but 2 got it.
Hi. I'm going to speak on behalf of Kara, but I also have 3 daughters. I have a senior in high school. She went all the way through Layton. I have an 8th grade in middle school. She went all the way through in Layton also, and I have a 1st grader. So they're all very sad to hear this, obviously, because they love their teachers. And they, my 17-year-old has been top 25 since she hit middle school, and she had a really great experience with Layton. My 8th grader, we don't know what she is, but I would say she's either top 1 or 2 of her class. Layton teachers do a great job with their students. Okay, this is Kara. If we close Layton, or our school for that matter, we shake the foundation of the triangle, which ultimately shakes the middle and top of the triangle. This can change the trajectory of their potential. And for many of these kids, especially the 70% of FLS students, that foundation was started on unlevel ground. Frederick Layton Elementary is more than just a building. This school, its teachers, and is its students' families that reside in our neighborhoods. It is because of its location to where people live that families are able to participate and be involved in the students' education. To many of these kids, this building is their safe place. For 6 or more hours a day, 5 days a week, it is their shelter. FLS provides food, clothing, shoes, boots, and jackets to many of the students whose basic needs are not met at home. Frederick Layton is not just a building. It is where students and families build relationships and trust and ultimately learn and grow. I speak firsthand in saying it's wonderful to have each of your children have the same teacher that their older siblings once had. To have that bond between teachers and family, it creates trust and strength in our community. Does repurposing Layton put any students in our districts first when class sizes increase and our students are already falling behind educationally and socially and emotionally after a global pandemic? Will students learn and grow when they no longer feel safe and secure because they've been uprooted and placed in a building with mostly strangers? Does this plan ensure equity and create access and opportunity for all, or does it create even more obstacles and barriers for its most vulnerable students and families? From anyone looking at the redistricting maps, the new boundaries are strange. To live here and know that these neighborhoods, it's appalling that our district put these new boundary maps out to the public. They should be ashamed and embarrassed about the obvious socioeconomic segregation that these boundaries create. And I just want to say, this happened with my oldest, my 17-year-old. In the 2nd grade, a bunch of her friends got redistricted and moved to Kingsford. And taking a bunch of those kids, those were the kids that lived a lot in the rural areas who came from middle class, upper class homes, and then our school became more lower income. And it was pretty sad, and I don't know why they continue to do that. And I also know that there are students that should be going to Layton but are being pushed off to other schools because the class sizes might have been too big. And this has happened year after year. And I'm not sure if it's happened since you've been the superintendent, Mr. Calvin, but I also do know that it has been told to us, because I was in home and school for years as vice president, and it has been told that this has happened. So
Okay,
it's
thank you very
sad.
much that your time is up. Thank you. Courtney Hutchings? Okay. Robin Tryon?
My name is Robin Tryon, and I am a teacher in the Oswego City School District. I've been working at Kingsford Park for 17 years. It's approximately 3,060 days, 18,360 hours that I have worked either one-on-one, small group, or a class of students. So I feel like I'm a good one to speak about what would be good for children, and not only children, but of teachers, for teachers, which no one seems to be thinking about us. I don't know why. To do my job well and to serve our community in the best way possible, I feel that I cannot support the Layton repurposing proposal as it is. I do not support filling every nook and cranny of the KPS building with classrooms for K through 6 if it means teachers in the areas of art, music, band, orchestra, AS, math, team time, reading group, ENL, special ed, library, physical and occupational therapy, speech, etc., do not have a home or workplace of their own. Absorbing 7 sections, classrooms, would undoubtedly displace teachers, assistants, and aides who would then have to travel or push into already crowded spaces. This would not be an ideal way to teach special area content. Nor do I support the proposition if it means class sizes will go up. In the current proposal, several classrooms would be above 20 students. In my experience, no more than 18 is ideal. In no situation does larger class size benefit students or staff. Smaller spaces in which to work inhibit movement, which is crucial to the well-being of primary-aged kiddos. I know the board supports small class sizes. Let's do better. If certain K through 6 classrooms are at more than 18, an aid should be provided for those teachers during the ELA skills, science, and math blocks to maximize student learning. This is especially true for K through 2 classrooms. The proposal will also have a significant impact on scheduling. Scheduling lunch, library specials, SEL time with school counselors, AS math, and team time reading groups for the current amount of classes is already tight and does not lend itself to flexibility. This does not even include special services like speech, language, ENL, OT, and PT. That makes scheduling nightmarish. With more students in sections, classrooms, I am worried about stress on the staff, faculty, and the principal, and the impacts the stress would have on our effectiveness, our mental health, and our morale. Historically, KPS has been a highly effective learning environment in OCSD and has had the best learning outcomes for students. This is in spite of all the external demands and micromanaging of teachers' time, resources, and talents in their area of expertise. The demands will undoubtedly increase due to the lack of space and time per child. The demands will would this decision make KPS less effective, and would learning outcomes suffer as a result? I believe so. I fear this proposition would cause many teachers to reach their breaking point and cause them to leave the profession due to reasons I stated above. We already have a shortage of dedicated, experienced teachers, and the exodus of a handful of our best would have a negative impact on students and their families, and therefore our community. We are already feeling the crunch of not having enough substitutes, bus drivers, custodians, and other necessary supports in the district. Financially speaking, I'm not sure what the positive impact would be, if any, and I'm sure the board has looked at the numbers. Being a taxpayer in Oswego, I'm certainly not opposed to saving money. However, making a decision based on the bottom line doesn't always equate to sound decisions for the various other factors. I have to just put my faith in all of you to make wise decisions on that front. Another thought I have is
10
regarding
seconds.
why Layton needs space. What would the vacant classroom space be used for? If it's for admin purposes only, I'd be so discouraged. The ever-growing body of administrators should get more space and resources than the faculty who work with the classrooms of kids every day. The fact that I have to ask this question speaks to the lack of communication between those who make the decisions and the teachers carrying out what needs to be done. Teachers shoulder the burden of every administration and Board of Ed decision made. It would be very unjust and counterintuitive to allocate more space for the administration to spread out while the rest of us have limited space with more students.
Okay,
All
thank
the
you,
while
Robin.
trying to cover more and more curriculum.
Ben Richardson.
Good evening. My name is Ben Richardson. I am a teacher at the high school, but I am also, and I'm here today as not just a teacher, but as a community member, a taxpayer, an empty nester, and someone who does not have an immediate personal stake in the closing of Layton. However, as a community member, I think it's a bad idea. I'm going to finish what my neighbor Robin tried to finish. Will the administrators be working in a shared space with limited resources and time like
So
teachers would be
I can just
expected?
say we're not expanding administrative space if you want to skip down to if she had any other final points.
All right, I agree with what, I agree that we should use the space effectively and cost efficiently. But I am certain it isn't in the form of upping the amount of space for people who are holding teachers accountable. I need specific information on Layton, how Layton is going to be repurposed, and I need to know how much money will be saved in doing so. What is the plan? I can make an informed decision only when everything is made transparent. I hope to hear about more options in the near future, as I don't think this option would be the best solution. I'm asking that you consider making the wisest decisions for our faculty and the children and families we serve in Oswego, a city in which I live, work, and play. Thank you for listening and considering my thoughts. I am truly genuine in stating my opinions and passionate about what I do. I love teaching and I love my students, and I want to continue to do so. Teaching is a very challenging job, especially over the last couple of years. The job is also exceptionally rewarding if done right. Please make it easier for us to do what is right. So in my remaining minute and a half, I'll tell you briefly that I was standing before the board about 20 years ago with Dr. Morgan at KPS, and we had a similar meeting about closing that school. Why? Money. The community was wholeheartedly against it. In the focus group in which I participated, there were several recommendations that we were supposed to consider, the first of which was to get good data. Okay, there's a lot of data, but it's all retroactive. It's all looking back. There's nothing looking forward. When I was an Army officer, a senior Army officer, I always expected my staff to be able to project into the future, to say, look, this is what the vision is. This is what the future looks like. This is what we need to do to meet that. And if they couldn't do it, I sent them back to work. Right now, we have a lot of data on what we've done, not on where Oswego is going to go. And no one has thrown out Micron. Micron is going to show up in Clay, New York, which is part of Central New York, and it's going to create, as predicted, 50,000 jobs within Central New York, not just Onondaga County. We are part of that economy. In fact, if you go to the state websites and look up economic data, you'll see that we are part of the Syracuse Metropolitan Statistical Area. Our economy is going to be affected. The Assistant Director for Business for Oswego County mentioned that it's going to increase the population over the next 20 years by 20,000.
10 seconds.
So let's not make this like the game show, Let's Make a Deal, in which the host offers people money to guess what's behind the curtain. That's a great idea for a game show. That's not a good way to close a school. Thank you.
Jim Ekman.
All of my main topics have been covered tonight, so I'm going to wing it. I'm a taxpayer, a parent, retired person with a business. I met all the criteria to be on the focus group. We spent time here. Didn't appear that any of the things that we brought up were paid attention to. Number two, I've spoken at this group. I think just about every one of you have been here. I've spoken to you, 7, 8 different times? Brought up topics and issues. Got one resolution to 12 items I've brought up. Number three, all the meetings I attended, I think 6 people was the most I'd ever seen. Look at this. You had to move the meeting to get everybody in the room. This decision is on you. Everybody in this room pays you to be here to do things for us, the community. We're the taxpayers. We're the parents. Not true?
We're not paid.
All right. Well, I appreciate you volunteering.
Double that up and I'm all good.
Damn it. Anyway, it's on you to make this decision. From everything you've heard and all the people that are here tonight, how in the world can you pass this through? That's it.
Okay, thank you. That ends the floor to the public.
One last item. $97 million budget. If this passes, I'll make a recommendation that we use some of that money to have an investigative team come in here and figure out what's going on in the school district.
Okay, so the first item on the Board of Education is the first reading of the policies. These were policies reviewed at the November 1st committee meeting. There are 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. There are 18 policies here. I can read through them if people need it, or it's posted on the public content. Does anyone have any questions on any of the policies that we are recommending? Okay, we will move this to the next meeting to have our second reading. The next item on our agenda. Oh, I'm sorry. So is there a first to move these policies?
I'll make the motion.
Second?
Second.
Was that Sean? Okay. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. Our next item on the agenda is the Frederick Layton Elementary School repurposing. And do you want to go so you can face? All right, thanks.
Do we want to have a motion and a second before discussion? Because if there's not a motion and a second, there is no discussion?
Sure. We can, well, the presentation was going to come before the discussion.
Are we doing B
We're doing B.
with a presentation?
Well, we can, it's okay. Is there a first to, we can move it to discussion. Okay. So is anyone, do we have a first to discuss Frederick Layton Elementary School repurposing? So we can amend the agenda to do the presentation. I mean, right, so the superintendent's report and the they're like two different things. We can move it down. So is there a motion to move item 4B to after the superintendent's present report?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second? Seeing none, okay, we will move to the Frederick Layton Elementary School repurposing. Is there a motion to move that to the floor for discussion?
Yeah, I'll make the motion.
Okay, is there a second for for that motion? Okay, I will second that motion because I think all these people have come out and we owe it to them to have a public discussion before we vote on that. Hold on, we're not there yet. Is there any discussion on this motion? Well, the motion to talk about Layton. So we need positives and negatives to talk about Layton. That's what's on the floor right now.
Yes, there's discussion.
Okay. All in favor of? Okay, listen, all we're doing right now is we need to move the discussion of Layton to the floor. This is not the vote on Layton. This is moving the discussion to the floor.
Are we on B, though?
Yes.
So as a point of order with an agenda, if the next thing in the agenda is specifically a recommendation from Dr. Kelvin, then to discuss that motion, the pros, cons, and everything, we first have a motion on his recommendation. I believe that's what you did, Tom. If not, were you only doing it for a discussion and not the motion itself?
That's what I was asking.
Because, I mean, that's for the next thing on the agenda, as Heidi's correctly saying, is to act on this motion.
Okay, so there is some background information that we would like to be able to present that addresses a number of the concerns and emails that we've gotten. There was a call for context, was the main message that I got out of the focus group. So we can do two things as I see it. We can either, I would like to hear the context and to make sure that the audience can hear or that the public can hear that context. So we can either have Mathis's presentation moved up to now so that we can open the discussion, or we can move this discussion after the superintendent's report. Would we rather hear the superintendent's report first? Okay, so then, am I confused?
No, I think it's how the agenda is a little bit out of order
Okay.
tonight than it typically is. Usually we have the superintendent's report, and then we would have had all of the various information presented on whatever topics they were going to be presented on. Then we would move to the board information.
Okay.
So maybe that's the confusion?
Right, so then, can we have a motion to amend the agenda to move item 4B to after the superintendent's report and before the consent agenda?
And then is the PowerPoint going to contain everything?
Yes. Primarily this, but.
Yeah,
there were
but all
other-
of the information.
Right.
That's-
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I'll make a motion for that.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, I'm going to do this roll call just to make sure that I got everybody. I think it's 4-3, but, Tom Chiappa,
Yes.
Dave Crisafulli,
Yes.
Pam Dowd,
No.
Jim McKenzie,
No.
Sean Onmecht,
No.
Heidi Sweeney,
Yes.
okay, and Lisa Glidden is yes. Okay, so the next item on our agenda is the superintendent's report.
So as a point of order, can I please clarify that the 4B, there is no motion and no second that has been entertained by the floor?
That is correct.
Thank you.
All right. Good evening, Board. I'm going to move briefly through, but certainly my goal is to make sure that I can provide as much information and context tonight before we continue to move forward with the meeting. So I wanted first, again, as I normally do, I heard some folks say this evening, this is really about kids. We have some wonderful children I want to congratulate this evening, and that is at our high school drama club. Last week, put on Clue on stage. The comedy left fans and newcomers really, not only in stitches, but really enjoying themselves. It was a great get-together here talking about who did it, where, and with what. Clue is a hilarious face meets murder mystery based on the iconic 1985 Paramount movie inspired by the classic Hasbro board game. I just think we need to make sure that we congratulate our students, want them to hear from me, job well done. If we can give them a round of applause, much appreciated. I'd also like to make sure that we congratulate and thank the staff for their hard work and their efforts, and the volunteers. A lot goes into the work that's done for our kids. So I just want to say thank you and congrats to everybody. So this evening, we have a couple things that were said, and I think I'm going to try to get to as many points as I can from what I've heard. I won't be able to get to everything. I certainly don't want to belabor the time, but I just want to make sure that I go through some things. First, I was listening very intently this evening, and we had one community member, I think, who talked about how do we get here, right? So I wanted to just make sure that we shared what has occurred, what's happened, and the information that is out there. How do we get to this point where we're having this conversation? So all of this started back really in the spring of 2021. During that particular school year, there was information shared at Board of Ed, and among the Board of Ed. There was concerns about our budget and that it was rising really way too quickly. And during those conversations, what was clear to us is that when you look around and look at other districts who are near us, our budget is far larger than many others. Whether it's in Onondaga or even in this county, when you compare us to others, it's just there is a real considerable higher cost. And some of the concern that was shared in that Board of Ed meeting in the spring was that costs are just rising too quickly and that this was unsustainable. And so that budget was passed in May of 21, but then, there was a concern still around the budget. And so we did talk, I spoke with the Board of Education about, I wasn't sure really what all the concerns were, but I know the best way, that in my opinion, the best way to kind of answer and think about things was to really study and look at our practices to best understand how we might address this particular issue. And so I did share with the board one of the things we could do was enter into a study to study ourselves and to look at efficiencies, and that proposal was agreed upon. We then began to reach out to folks to get proposals, to get some folks who might be interested in this work, and we had a number of groups that did come forth. The Siemens Group, the TAS group, who did the transportation study, Rick Timms, a fiscal expert across the state, Castillo and Silke, who look at efficiencies across districts, and as you can see at the dates, there was, reports that were done, draft reports, final reports that were presented, and, there's been a lot of information. One of the things that when you're doing this kind of work that you often hear is that you can't you're trying to communicate, but boy, you can't always get every single person in your district, so you try to over-communicate as much as you can. So you can see that there have been a number of letters, there's been proposals, there's been notes that have been put out. All of these items are on to our webpage. All of them are there, and these are all of the things that are out there. Also, on top of this, we've tried to be transparent, open with the public. You can go to our WBUC page and find videos of every board meeting that involves this study. And this has been, again, it started back in the 2021 school year, all the way up to where we're at right now, basically. So again, there are 4 parts of the study, and people have said, I watched the video at great length with the focus group, and I've really looked at the thought exchange like I know all of you have as well. And one of the things that people have asked is, are there any other things that the board considered and the superintendent in terms of efficiencies? Yes. So there were energy efficiencies, and I know that the board agreed to move forward with the Siemens Energy Efficiency Group, which would net over $3 million over 18 years, right? I'm just trying to share this out loud so people hear this tonight. There was a transportation efficiency study that was done, which basically said, hey, if you do some things a little different around your transportation operations, I believe that number, Nancy, tell me if I'm wrong, I believe it was over $300,000, that you could gain. Fiscal efficiencies, there were some ideas that came from Rick Timms, like not bonding for buses, using cash instead, that you could save some resources on and be better efficient. And then there's this program efficiency, which has a conservative estimate. And I believe that Mr. Pohl made it very clear that these estimates were conservative, and they were the minimum was 1.8 million plus, right? So there have been other areas that have been investigated, that have been looked at in terms of how we might be able to resolve some of the concerns around budgeting. As you all know, there have been a number of things that have been looked at in addition to just the studies. We have spent great amount of time over the last 3 meetings trying to share all of this additional information, with labor relations information, real estate information, current enrollment, thought exchange, survey data, class size data, redistricting plans. A number of items have been shared. We have done this transparently. We have not tried to hide any of this information. Everything, again, if you go back to our website, people can find it. It's all there. Or you can go and watch our WBUC page and watch every meeting, and you'll find this information that was shared out there. One of the things that we have had to take some time to look at is enrollment. And enrollment is important. We have heard from some people that, the enrollment doesn't matter. It does matter. When you are operating a multi-million-dollar complex organization, enrollment does matter, because enrollment is attached to financial aid for districts. It's attached to the work that we do with and for students. And so, it is a part of the study that we have had to look at. We have shared that our September data, here it is, right? Years ago, they looked at not only, they just looked at the K through 12 data. We look at now UPK up to 12. So we shared the data in September with UPK, without UPK. With UPK, it's 3639. Without it, it's 3514. And then in October, as of the 17th, our Beds Day, around that time frame, we shared additional data, and we saw that we lost 4 additional students at that time. 3641 with UPK and 3510 without. Now, I heard some people talking about regional class sizes, and some said that we are in the middle. Actually, we are not. We're actually in the lower hand in terms of regional class size data. Now, we have come and share with the board the data from multiple districts who are around us. We've spoken at great length with superintendents, and we shared this, and I believe it was 2 meetings ago, and then at our last meeting. And what you can see is the median, the average, but we compared ourselves, and we wanted to see how are we doing compared to those who are around us. Most are at 20 to no more than 25, right? That's what most districts around us are doing. We are not at the middle of that. We're at the lower end of that. And then we had districts that were smaller of size who shared with us, hey, this is not something like as a goal that we have chosen. This is just the way it is because our district is smaller, okay? And so you can see what those numbers look like. Our numbers are on the lower end of that. Now, we also share with the board several scenarios, right? And each of these scenarios are focused on not raising class size data, or class sizes, but keeping them where they're at or lower, right? So we shared 4 different scenarios. One has 18 for K, 20 for grades 1 through 2, 23 for 3 through 6. There was another scenario that was here with K through 2 at 18, 3 through 6 no more than 23. And we, by the way, shared that we can actually, if those numbers are not comfortable with 23 or 24, no problem. We can add another teacher back in there and continue to move forward. We had some people in the background. We had a scenario 3, right, which had 20 to 23. And again, same thing, we could add more if we want to, more teachers back to that scenario if we'd like. And then there was scenario 4 with 18, no more than 18 with K, and 1 through 6 at 20, right? And that would bring us to 99 sections. Now, when I say enrollment matters, the reason why I say it is because when we're in this work with children, and again, this is a multi-complex, work that we're doing here, we have to continue to look at where we're at and what's going on. So we also shared with the entire community and the board where we've been at in terms of enrollment. So I heard some people talk about 20 years ago, the conversations that happened 20 years ago. Well, I have to tell you, 20 years ago, we were at 2540 for our elementary folks, our elementary students. That number has continued to go down. And it's not something that we can just ignore. I shared in the last board meeting, I subtracted the 2540 from the current 1860. And when I did that, we saw a loss of 680 students. That's just the elementary numbers. Now, we have been talking about classes, and we'll talk about spaces in just a moment. But if you just took the elementary spaces, 680 students, and you divided that, let's say we had class sizes of just 20. We said K through 6, we will just do no more than 20 kids in the classroom, right? Or less. If you did that, that would be dividing that 34 sections gone over the last 20 years. Now, I've had a lot of people say to me, there is no way in the world that our school district can fit any additional kids in any of our schools. There's no space in any of our buildings. There's not a room of space. There's no place we can do it. There's no way we can do that. That just isn't truth. If you just look at this data alone, 34 sections have gone, right, at 20 at a class size. We are seeing enrollment dropping, and it's dropping to a point where this is why we've had the discussion that unfortunately we've had to have, because it's having an impact on our ability to offer more for our students. It's having an ability on our, it's causing us to not be able to offer more robust instruction and programs for our students. And so we are seeing that we are lagging in many areas, but also our costs are constantly going up, and that is really it's impacting the district. So I just want to share that information again. We looked at live birth data and what those projections are. And you can see that in 2018, for the next school year, 271, we've used that number, right? Which we feel is very conservative, but we put it in. The following school year, the projections, according to live birth data, are a little bit lower at 259. Now, we have looked at all of our classrooms, and Amanda and I and our principals, we've gone through all of our buildings, and we've looked at spaces. And a lot of our staff, we do hear them loud and clear. We do listen to our staff. There were some comments tonight I just want to clear up. Some people said that, that we don't listen to our teachers, that, our relationships are toxic. I have to say, that is just not the way that we do things in our district. From the time that I've come here, my goal is only to partner with all of our stakeholders. There's not much that we do in isolation from our staff. We have a number of things that we do. Our strategic planning team, our DEI initiative, which is new, our school safety committees, our school reopening plan when we came back to school, building teams. We're working on now math curriculum. That work is not done as a silo, and it's not done as top-down. It's done in teaming fashions. We try to bring together as many people as we can to sit and talk. We also do have a faculty liaison group, and they share with me bluntly any concerns that come up. And we work diligently to try to resolve whatever concerns that are out there. So the comments that were made, I respect them, but I have to say respectfully, we work very diligently to work with and support and to hear from our staff. Now, we've heard from a lot of people, loud and clear, that some people don't see that we have space. However, we've gone through and we've looked at spaces that could be repurposed. And there are spaces, right, that could be repurposed. As I just shared, there's 680 less kids. How could there be no space across the entire district? Well, there is. So we've gone to our schools and we've shown that we've looked at what are the current spaces that are available, and then what are the classrooms that we think that could be repurposed. And there are 35 at the elementary level. At the secondary level, and this is a K through 12 study, there are 15.4 at OMS and 27.5 at OHS, right? And that brings us up to 42.90, and across the whole district, 77.9 instructional spaces when you put it all together, which is why we are having some concerns and sharing this. My job as a superintendent is to make sure we have a high-quality education for our students, but also, and make sure the kids are safe, that our staff are safe, that needs are met. But my job is also to share the information openly, honestly, and transparently. I may not be able to share what everyone wants to hear, but I need to share the information as openly and as transparently and honestly as it is. And that's what we're sharing here, right, at this point and this time. And again, the data is kind of what it is. Now, we've had questions about where are these spaces at? Well, I'm going to go through, and I'll show you a list of the spaces. They're all here.
Okay, if we can please keep it down so we can hear the presentation. Thank you.
So these are the spaces that we have. And we've gone through, double-checked them, talked with our principals. I do know that just today I met with all of our elementary principals. One has shared with me that there was some folks who came over and actually did a walkthrough, saw the space, and said, yeah, we see it. Another shared with me that staff came in and discussed the space with them, and she pointed it right out. Actually, 2 additional principals shared, no, there is room, and explained to them where it was. Another said to me that, I have shared very transparently these spaces with my staff. Anyone who's asked me, I've answered the question, right? Another invited another person over to visit schools, and they weren't able to do that, but I'm just sharing. We're not trying to keep anything away from folks, right? But here's the spaces. KPS, these are the room numbers that are there. And you'll see some of these spaces. So 109 is a COVID isolation room now. 115 is a teacher's lounge. It could be relocated, similar to a lounge that's currently an FPS. Now, by the way, I had a question about teacher's lounge, and I'll answer this in a minute. In our contracts with our teachers group, yes, it does share that they need to have a teacher's lounge. It doesn't share what room it has to be at, doesn't give us size requirements. It says that we have to make sure that there are teacher lounges. And in all of our buildings, we would make sure that's the case. That is the case. But what we were looking at is, are there additional spaces that could be repurposed? Well, the teacher's lounge is one. Special education space, we know that we could relocate that and create something a little bit better for some of our special ed teachers in 224. 211, TA space could be relocated. 101, which is a pre-K classroom, if pre-K was to stay in that building, we can do that. If we want to pull it out, there's space that's there. There is a band room that could be relocated. to 101, and it would allow for an AIS and a special ed support center. It's a pretty big space that the band room is currently in right now. There is an actual room that was a band or a music room. We have some OT and PT spaces. OT and PT are not in the building every day, but we know that there's some things that could be relocated there. And then O12 is empty at this time. It could be considered for AIS. There is also a larger K room that we did notice that could be split, but we put it as questions, okay? We excluded one of the identified areas. Right now, it looks like as we would have total spaces of 29. We currently have, with UPK in that building, 22 sections. We think that there is enough room for 29. In Fitzhugh Park School, the number of sections plus UPK is 23. We believe that we can get up to at least 28. 122 is an AIS support place that we can relocate. We are clear that we can. Again, there's a OT PT space that we can relocate. There's a speech room at 7B, and 002 pre-K could be relocated to Frederick Layton School if we wanted to do that. And then 211 is a math AIS classroom that we also believe that we could certainly repurpose if we'd like to. And that is, again, 23. That can go to 28. At Minetto, we had 23 with UPK, and then Minetto had probably the biggest amount of space. That had 10 extra spaces there. So we had a 108, which is a speech room. The rooms in Minetto are just large. They're just bigger than most of our other rooms. So we know that we can do some things different around speech there. 124 also with speech. 125 with pre-K. The orchestra room, so in several of our buildings, we have an orchestra room that's also used with band, so they come opposite days. We have an orchestra room and we have a band room. They don't meet on the same days. They meet actually opposite days. If you wanted, you could put them in the same room. And orchestra meets 3 days a week, band meets 2 days a week. They could share a room. We were clear that there was no reason why that could not happen. There's another speech room at 146, full classroom that doesn't require a full room. There's a room used for data team meetings, 144. There's a lounge area at 135. There's a space that was empty at the time. It could be a counselor, a space, or AIS. There was a reading book room. The book room is really not required. That could be relocated to a number of places around the building. And then there was another question mark space for speech if we wanted to do that.
Dr. Calvin, just as a matter, just to make sure everybody's aware, everything you've been presenting to us as possibilities don't affect the redistricting of Minetto. So
No.
This slot, you're welcome, just in case you're wondering.
No, it doesn't.
I just wanted to make sure in case anybody's worried that Minetto's involved in this story.
Correct. No,
I just wanted to make sure people know.
Minetto is not one of the ones that are up at this time. However, it's not one that we're looking at, for repurposing. But we wanted to share the entire space that's available across the district. Charles E. Riley, number of sections plus UPK is 22. Total spaces with additional repurposing is 29. 106, used right now for out-of-district partnership. 109 is an empty classroom scheduled to be a conference room. I don't think we need another conference room. I think we definitely could use it as a classroom. 116, currently there's some ELL, we have an ELL teacher there. That could be used for ELL. We could keep that if wanted, or we could do something with special ed and relocate the ELL. The staff lounge could be relocated. The special education center, so there's a center that has some special ed teachers there. It's outside of the library area. We know that a number of those students who are in that zone, work with those teachers in that area, are all going to be relocated up to the middle school the next year. So there's a whole group of folks that would not be needed in that space. 155, the room is occupied now for services. Services could be relocated throughout the building. 156, UPK could be relocated to Frederick Layton if we chose to do that. There's a string and OT room, again, same kind of scenario, right, where people are not there at all times, and we certainly found another space we could do that with. And then there was a room 114. So again, and we excluded some of those, at least one of those spaces that was identified. And then finally, Frederick Layton School, we saw a couple places that could be relocated if we wanted to. 119B, 119A, 118B, 138, which is a pre-K classroom if pre-K were relocated, 149, which is a Layton Learning Community Room. That partnership can be moved. They work with more than just Layton. And then there's a nursing office, there's an isolation room that's on the side there. That could be certainly an AIS room or a special ed room. No one's in the room now. And then there's 169, which is a staff lounge, which could be relocated if we wanted to. 4 of these spaces are smaller, just so you know, than most classes, so they could be used as special ed rooms or something different if we'd like to. I just wanted to be clear on that. So just a couple questions. How many sections do we currently have without pre-K? So we know that we have 100 sections right now. With added five pre-K classrooms across the district, it would go to 105. But we have 100 without pre-K in our buildings right now. How many sections will we need for next school year? So if you look at all of those scenarios, every one of those scenarios call for less than 100 sections, okay? How many instructional classroom spaces would be available after repurposing? So we added the numbers of the schools that are there, and what we know, let me take that back. That says after repurposing. It should say actually prior to repurposing. My apologies for that. So that number is between 135 and 140. Again, we have less than 100 now, we have 100 now, right? If we were to, not repurpose, leave it, there's actually room for 135 to 140 spaces, right? I was conservative in my last presentation and said 135. With the 4 remaining schools, how many sections could fit into these schools? So if we did KPS, it's 29 sections. Fitzhugh Park School, 28. Minetto, 33. Charles E. Riley, 29. A total of 119 sections with the 4 remaining schools. We only have 100 sections. We have room for 119. Less than 100 sections are needed. 4 classrooms for UPK. If you want to keep them in those buildings, you could keep them there, right? That still gives us 115 classrooms that could be used for instructional classroom spaces. We could exclude, by the way, changes to any teacher lounges. Take those 3 out, and you still have 12 additional spaces, right? The point that we're trying to make is in the existing spaces with 4 buildings, if we were to make a change, there's room for the 100 sections. And all of these scenarios call for less than 100 sections. We've had a question that came up that said, well, what if our numbers were to grow? What if we had 1,950? And I left that over there. Does anyone, calculator, can you get your calculator out, please? Let's say we have 1,900 or 1,950. Again, I'm just going to go with the class size of 20 for everybody, 20 for everyone, K through 12. So 1,900, Nancy, divided by 20 is, what do you get? 1,900 divided by 20.
97.5 is what I got.
Right? 1,900.
I'll let the accountant double check me.
Double check. 95.
I did 1950.
Right. So 95 for 1,900. If you did 1,950, everybody class of 20. That's 97.5. Sir?
So how does that make sense in your model with 1,826 students that would fit into 99 sections that wouldn't grow class size? Right. Because the way the lines are drawn, as some people pointed out, the lines are drawn in certain ways.
Yeah.
I don't see how that works.
So Jim, I just want to remind you again. So in some of those scenarios, you have class sizes of 18, you put in different goals, 18, 20, then 20, 23. So that's why we had different, numbers, right? But if you just take this number that you have, 19, and we get rid of all those different caveats that we had put in there, it equals what comes out there. The point that I'm making is that we have 4 buildings that we're talking about. Yeah, it does add up. It comes down to 95 and 97.5. And when we did do this listing, we did all the busing, we did all the transportation, where people would go, and that all worked itself out. And we shared that with you all transparently. Will the district redistricting latent students to other 3 schools affect art, music, PE, library, AIS, special education? So I want to be very clear. If this decision is made, we are committed. We have said to our unions, we've said to everyone that we've talked to, we're not looking to lay off anybody. Any changes would happen through attrition. Now, what would happen is, so these services will go to where the students are, right? We may be in some areas able to offer some additional things that we haven't been able to offer for kids in terms of enrichment. But these folks would be relocated to where our children are. So music, we may need a couple extra classes in one building, a couple in another building. We send the music teachers where those people are. PE will need some extra in one building versus another. We send them where they're at. Library, right? There may be some great enrichment things we can do through library. AIS special ed, they will go to where the children are, okay? Would this plan require relocating of any UPK classrooms to other buildings? It doesn't. But if we choose to, we could. I've shared with you why I think it's a good idea to consider relocating UPK. I heard earlier this evening that most of the children stay in their neighborhood schools. There are some who do, but there are many who do not. My suggestion would be, if possible, hey, you could put them all into a space. If you choose not to, they could stay in those existing spaces as we've shared. Any new construction required to reconfigure existing spaces. So, first of all, we always try to have a backup plan in place, right? So as we walked around our schools, we looked at places that, if people were concerned, right, about spaces, are there other ways or areas that we can grow at? So for example, Manella's a great example of this. I'm going to give you Fitzhugh Park as well as Kingsford Park. There are spaces that we can simply make into office spaces by simply adding a wall, putting a wall up. And we've done that as a school district for quite some time. Dave, you want to say something?
Yeah, it's not quite that easy because the HVAC and everything's got to be changed.
Yes, you do.
There-
You
there
do
is
have
a
to
cost.
HVC, you got to make sure your electricity
alarm
there.
and-
Right, that is correct. But there is a couple spaces that, we looked at and said, hey, if there's a concern about anybody, can we throw up a wall here? Can we do the HVAC things? Can we do whatever needs to be done here and do it relatively without difficulty? We know that there are 4 areas. So KPS has 2 areas outside of a 6th grade area. Fitzhugh Park has 2 areas. If we wish to do that, is it required? No, you don't have to do that at all. But we kind of always have to look for backup plans and keep thinking ahead of things. And so we thought that. We heard from a community member that we were going to have to reconstruct rooms in one of the buildings and put new windows in. No. There was a conversation, my understanding is, that person had with their principal, who talked about the big choral room, the choral room upstairs. There's a meeting room, and if they went and ripped that out, then we could we are not talking about ripping out the big, huge choral meeting room. That has not been could we do something with it in the future as a future construction plan? I think yes. But at this point, that's not something we would even consider doing. That's a lot of work. Those steps are full of cement. That's a lot to do. So I think that's where that came from. But are you required to do any construction? No. But when we need to do it, we do it. We have had recently some work done. David, please forgive me if I'm wrong, but I know in your time there was work done, walls and things put up in the warehouse over there in the meeting area. We've got classrooms in Charles E. Riley where they're now AIS offices. Upstairs in Fitzhugh Park, right outside the 6th grade wing, there's a reading room that has been done with. We just put in an office in one of our district office areas. We know how to do that. So if we have to do it, that's a backup place. Are there any effect on contractual spaces such as teacher rooms or lounges? Well, I just shared with you that we do have some areas that we know could be used for kids, right? And we could relocate those teacher rooms. Do we have to do that? No. As I've shown you, we could pull that out. And then will we lose aid on Frederick Layton School if we repurpose it? The answer to that is no. There is no aid that's lost unless you sell the building. Then you would see, you have to give whatever you sold the building for, you have to give that back to the state, basically, okay? So, but all the work that's been done on that building now, that's all aided, unless you sell and totally sell that building, basically. So the only other thing I wanted to share, so people says, does this matter? It does matter. Again, I want to be clear. Our enrollment, it just continues to go down. The study has been very eye-opening for me. And I just want to be clear. I enjoy working here in Oswego City School District. I'm not here to cause any trouble or cause any problems with our folks. I do have to share information. And it may not make everyone happy, but I have to share information and make sure people know what's going on here, right? We are in a challenging time, right? Everything is costing more to do. Costs are going up. We're trying to make our program as robust as we can, and the cost is just, it's going up. I shared with the board at the last meeting that, you know, and that King & King came in and shared that we have $143+ million of current work that will need to be done. Some of that includes work that's currently in our building project. Some of it does not. But that's what they're thinking around, and that's without the warehouse, the bus garage, the transportation center, and the storage buildings even being included, right? That's a lot to consider and to think about. I'm not going to go over the whole summary, but I just want to be clear. We're 1,500 students less than where we were 20 years ago. We're down from 50-10 to 35-10. You know, some have said, well, the data, you know, this data doesn't make sense. It's not right. It's wrong. I just share with the board. People have said, well, longitude, you know, this data is wrong. I just have to go back. And I say, you know, I hear you loud and clear. We've looked a lot at this data. It's 20 years worth of data. There was recently, you know, there were some questions about, well, is longitudinal data, is it accurate? It's not accurate long out. I have to go back and say, I've gone through all of the reports. I've seen them all. There's many of them. There's 12, well, now 13 of them. I don't think all of these 12 to 13 studies are wrong. We have a concern. And how we resolve the concern is certainly up to the board. I am willing to do whatever we need to do, but we do have a serious concern. The data, you know, this data that's in front of you is one of the 12 reports that I shared with you. It shares 7 through 12 and 9 through 12 data. And if you just take a look, these were the projections that were done back in 2012. These projections are worse today in terms of outcomes than what was projected. So in 2012, for 9 through 12, on the low end, they said, hey, 9 through 12, you will have 1,182 students. On the high end, right, you'll have 1,234 students just for 9 through 12. If you go back to the front page from September, 9 through 12, it's at 1,093. It's less than what they projected longitudinal out. 7 through 12, they said, hey, on the short end in 2023, and this was done back in 2012, they said short end 1,801 for your 7 through 12 data, and then short end 1,878. When you look at 7 through 12 now, the total when you add them up, it is 1,661. It is less than what they said would happen back in 2012. My point is that the situation is not getting better. It's getting worse. Now, whatever you decide is best for our district, we will work very diligently with our staff, we'll work diligently with our parents, we will make it happen, whatever it is. I'm all in to make sure that whatever we do, that it's smooth and it's done well for our kids. And I just think that that's the message that we need to see, is that finally, we want to grow. We want to expand our programs and our offerings. The sad part is that I think everybody really wants what's best for kids, and I appreciate everything that everyone said here this evening. I do, and I take it all to heart, believe it or not. Like all of the folks around this room, we do care about the kids and what's happening here. It's not anyone's fault, but this is the reality that we are facing in our district. It's been 20 years worth, 13 studies later, and it just isn't getting better. I thank you for your time. Respectfully, whatever way the board would like to move, I will do so. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Okay, we're going to take a 3-minute break. Okay, so moving to the reordered agenda, I will call it 6B. The motion on the Frederick Layton Elementary School repurposing. Do we have a motion to move this to the floor for discussion? Seeing none, the consent agenda. We have the special education report of 11/15/22, minutes of the board policy meeting November 1st, minutes of the board regular meeting November 1st, minutes of the board special meeting on November 4th, the budgets.
Lisa,
As
could I say-
a point of order, yeah, go ahead, Heidi, please. I
Well,
do this too often.
That's okay. Procedurally, I don't know that the community understands what just happened.
Oh, okay.
So maybe,
So the board, no one is choosing to move the motion to the floor, so we're not going to discuss it, and it will not be coming to a vote tonight. Okay?
Yes, and well, as a further clarification, it is an indication that no member of this board wanted to put forward the vote.
Well, I would have put forward the vote. I think this is
No
actually
two-
an
no two
important
people.
discussion to do, but as the presider, I don't like to be the first person to put a motion, so.
And I would have put it forward as well, to have the discussion.
Why did you put forward the motion?
Because I was waiting and no one else was coming forward. But
I don't disagree that because of the confusion of this, people may just go, give us the vote, right? So if I'm not making the motion because I'm not interested in the motion, right? But that's me. If somebody wants to have a discussion, make the motion, and if there's a second, we discuss.
can we table the motion?
No, because it hasn't been moved.
Yeah, it hasn't even been. Yeah. So we can do a few things here. We can move to postpone the discussion. We can move to.
Okay, I'm going to move the motion just because I'm going to move the motion. Thank you.
Is there a second?
I will second.
Okay. Any discussion on moving the motion? I think we've had enough of that.
yes, the discussion is on.
Okay.
On the motion.
Okay.
All right.
So I am going to keep a list because I think that we may have multiple people who want to speak to this, and I want to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to speak before we repeat someone so that we can hear all the voices tonight. So any discussion? Pam, you are recognized.
Why do I always have to go first? I don't mind. I'm going to speak to this, absolutely. I just don't even know where to begin. I am not in support of repurposing Layton School in any way, shape, or form. I'm actually not in support of repurposing any building right now. I don't think it's the right time. Tom Zuber was here at our last meeting. He informed us the district is in good financial shape. Our community continues to support our budgets. It's a projected $1.9 million in savings. You're all going to have to bear with me because I'll probably start crying. We can save that amount with a more conservative budget. In the last couple of years, that amount is half of what our surplus has been. So if we just tighten up on the budget and not have such a big surplus, we can get through the next couple of years. None of those prior studies for 20 years have the pandemic factor entered in. That pandemic factor brings us learning loss, social emotional disabilities, and this is not just students. This is students, faculty, staff, support staff, adults, me, everybody sitting at this table. We've all been affected by a pandemic. The focus group was not in favor of repurposing a building. I watched half of it live. I did leave because I went to watch my own daughter participate in a college sport. I came back and watched the second half from the recording, and I watched it again in its entirety. The focus group did not support this in any way, shape, or form. The focus group wants this district to bring our students' scores up, our graduation level up, address the needs of our students. I think Karen had said a couple of weeks ago, talking about an Excel spreadsheet, excuse me. Excel doesn't recognize people. Excel recognizes numbers. We as a board, we must recognize the people, our students, teachers, and support staff. If we don't belong in these seats. The Castillo table 6.3 and 6.4 show the percentage of students scoring 3 or 4 on the New York State assessments from 2016 to 2019. ELA ranges from 23 to 47%, and math ranges from 21 to 55%. Those numbers are not acceptable. We need our students. We need more students scoring 3s and 4s. If we put more kids in a classroom, our teachers can't get those students to 3s and 4s, not unless we put more TAs in the classrooms and teaching assistants. So where's our savings? We're gonna have to increase the support help. Larger classes with greater needs doesn't serve anybody. If we were to do this, redistricting would need to take place in the entire district, not just the kids that go to Layton. That isn't. The maps were the most inequitable drawn maps I have ever seen. Some of this you've all heard, I'm sorry. Transportation, we're already short drivers. So we're gonna add more routes, more time to our kids. 1 more minute on a bus for a kid is not acceptable. Have anybody ridden on a bus lately? Before and after school events, people have touched this. If you take the kids from Layton and put them into Riley, and you put them into Fitzhugh, and you put them into Kingsford, they won't be at before school and after school. Transportation needs are not going to get better in the district, I don't believe. I think it's going to get worse. So taking kids out of their neighborhood school is not an answer. Layton Learning Community. I think someone mentioned it. It's not going right now, no fault of our own. That has to do with some college and contractual items. Layton Learning Community, from what I remember, was placed at Layton because of the proximity of Layton to the SUNY Oswego campus. Not all campus kids have vehicles or transportation, nor does the bus schedule align with where their schedule is. Layton Learning Community was created so those college students who are interested in becoming our future teachers have that firsthand experience. They would come into Layton in the morning and have their classes in that old kindergarten classroom. It was my daughter's kindergarten classroom, in fact. That's where those kids, those college students were taking their classes. When they finished their courses, they pushed right into the building. They pushed right into classes with teachers. They had first-hand learning. And some of them might have decided they didn't want to become a teacher. And that's okay, because they learned it there before they spent a lot of money and then getting hired somewhere and decided that's not what they wanted to do. K through 6 numbers, you know, we're looking at historically numbers 20 years ago, 20 years ago. That's fine. Let's just look at the last 10 years. In the last 10 years, in K through 6, we've lost 101 students. That's 11 students per year. I don't think that constitutes repurposing a building. Mr. Richardson finally brought up Micron. I brought up Micron 2 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago when the announcement came out. None of us can predict the future, and we're all fools to think if no one working for Micron will come to this beautiful community to live and find a nice neighborhood school to send their children to. What will happen to the real estate around Layton if we repurpose that building? I think that I think that we're putting the values on those homes. I think we're cutting them because who wants to buy a house that they can't send their kids to school in? One last note on this subject, just a little tidbit. Last year, the Oswego High School valedictorian, Layton alumni. The year before that, valedictorian, salutatorian, Layton alumni. None of our buildings in this district are just a building. Every different elementary, the middle school and the high school, they all are families of their own. And I, for one, will not disrupt that. I think I'm good.
Is there additional discussion? Dave?
I'm just looking at the notes I have from a week ago, and nothing's really changed for me over the notes I have. The one thing, like the dollar amount and everything, you can't put a dollar amount on the effects of the staff and students to have to move and possibly go back someday. I think there's money to be saved other ways in the budget and that, other than the moving to school. And I'll be brief, I can't follow Pam in any way, but with Micron, that's a biggie, because there's a lot of companies that service Micron that are going to pop up, maybe in Oswego County or somewhere, that supplies parts and everything. And Oswego has made a lot of improvements, and I think people will come here, and I really think that'll happen. That's basically it. I do not support closing Layton.
Additional discussion? Heidi?
I just wanted to thank everyone who's reached out to us over the last couple of weeks. We appreciate hearing from the community and the children especially, and to thank the school district employees for all of their work over the last months of putting together all of the data for us. So thank you.
Tom?
Yeah. I don't think this is a binary choice. I don't think this is a win-lose. I look at it as opportunity. But I also look at it in terms of the context of the whole. Every school, as Pam mentioned, is a community, right? And you're a community. And I appreciate everything that you do. You're here because you care. We're here because we care. Every one of these people are here because we care. We all want the same outcome. How we get there is what is important. You can't look at the data that we see in front of us in terms of historical data and where we're going and not say we have to do something. And the reason I say that is because our resources that we're utilizing here could be addressing the needs that you're talking about. If we consolidate, if we streamline, if we're more effective in those areas, look at it this way. If we close the school, no jobs lost, we move everybody over and everybody's absorbed into the other one. It's okay, you can shake your head. I appreciate that's fine. But just go with me on this. If we did that and we have a savings, we're not going to get 1.7 million because we're not cutting positions. But what we are going to have is we are going to have a substantial savings. We are going to be able to utilize that in different ways. If we were to utilize it to put a city there, it would be a revenue stream for the district as a whole, for all of us, for those classes and those things that we need. If we have one principle that we don't get rid of, but retires, the principal plus additional benefits cost, could that put social workers into our elementary schools where they're needed over there? Could it help do that? Is that a need that we have? Could it be addressing the needs that we have relative to literacy and math and science. I'm talking about the money that we would utilize from that, and it wouldn't be an additional cost to the budget. But I also look at this, and this is where I'm conflicted, is that I do think we have to do something, but I do think we had a failure to communicate and have the inclusion of everyone in this process moving forward. So I'm with you, but I'm still objective. And let me speak to Micron and one more thing. Micron is a 20-year project, 20 years. If we continue, which the data says it will in terms of a decline, do we hold pat, which we can do and we'll survive? We hold pat, but we don't. That's 2 years before they go in, and then they start break ground. They're going to build 4 fab plants, 4 of them. I went to one of the meetings, they talked about it. If you go back and look at the reports, when they say the reports, in there's 2 words that jump out to me. 4 plants if built. If built. So let's take it apart. 9,000 jobs there, potentially 50,000 ancillary jobs affecting the region. If we got 9,000, but it's going to break that down into quarters, 250 per plant, or 225, 2,000, and that's going to break it into quarters in your first plant. How much is it going to affect us? It will affect us, but enough for us to hold pat? I don't believe that's the case. But I do want to look at it, and I said it's something we need to do, and I hope all of you look at it and know and realize it's something we did do. We don't do it as an insult or a slap in the face to you. We do it because we care about the outcomes and using the resources and allocating them in the right places as we go forward. So originally, I was going to be for this thing. I don't think it's going to go, but I don't want it to drop. I think and I'm not saying, we look at it, but we need to look as a collective in the future and what we're going to do. Because I don't think that, it's just my sense, that it wouldn't pass. But I think we have to do something, and I think we all have to face that reality. And I think that, again, I appreciate you. I appreciate you all coming here. I appreciate your commitment to the district. But let me say this, is one more thing. We can do it and survive. I don't want us to survive, I want us to thrive. Okay? And for all the people in Octa, when I ran this last time, I put in a quote at the back end about commitment and about what things can happen if you commit. And I think that's where we are. I'd like all of us to come together, if we can, in terms of the process where we don't drop this, we move forward and figure how do we solve this problem while at the same time getting the outcomes that we all want. That's where I am.
I think, Maura?
So I just want to thank everyone for coming out and supporting such an important cause to all of you, because it is really heartwarming as a student to see everyone support a school that they have a family environment in. And I know how intimidating it is to come up and talk to the board and present to everyone in the community. So I just want to say that I'm really proud of all of you for doing that. And I think that it's very cool that you stepped for such an important cause, because as a student, I know that I would be devastated if I were in the position of losing my school too. So thank you, all of you.
All right, so based on the conversation so far, I do think it's clear that this motion is going to fail. To echo Tom, this is not going to go away. Right, so Jackie started us off tonight by talking about the stress and anxiety that has gone on for 20 years because it keeps coming up that we need to, or not that we need to, but that if we want to be efficient, it's recommended that we do something different, right? That has been a number of different schools over the years. Can we do something different now, right? Sure we could, right? You can close Kingsford Park and sell it for condos. You can close Kingsford Park and have it be a community center, sell it to the city. You could close one of the other elementaries, right? All of that is going to require moving the 6th grade probably to the middle school and have the middle school be 6, 7, and 8. We could stop admitting students to Layton, right? So that we don't tear students away from their schools, but phase them out the same way we would phase in, or they phase in bigger cities. We are a large school district, and we don't actually have neighborhood schools. Some of us do. I am really lucky to live half a block away from Fitzhugh. My kids were able to walk to school. A lot of our kids cannot do that right now. I wrote back to Kara that the most important thing that I took from her message was about kids not being able to participate in intramurals or stay after class, or families maybe not being able to get out 2 nights. That's a really important equity issue, and I think we're, as a board, committed to equity. I don't know why we assume we can't somehow solve that problem, right? Running an early bus, running shuttles, we can solve these problems. And this is a problem that already exists in our district, right? Lots of kids going to Layton are living out in the town of Oswego. Lots of kids going to Fitzhugh are living in North Scriba. You know, kids going to Minetto are living in South Scriba. Oh, we could sell Minetto, right? That's been on the before, right? Assisted living, that's what the demographic of Minetto is going, right? Like, we have a lot of options before us. Clearly this is not going to pass tonight. However, this problem is not going to go away. And I think as a community, we really do need to consider that. We sold the education center, and this was a board prior to, I think, any of us being on it, right? Sold the education center, moved the administrators into Layton, partly because there was space there. We hired, what's that? Okay, space was created to move them in, right, but it's a wing of the building, right? So, oh, right, and there was redistricting that happened, yes, yep, I remember that, yeah. So, we've already made some steps as a district. We've already heard, right, that class sizes clearly is not directly impacting our graduation outcomes. We've hired some administrative positions to try to align our reading curriculum, align our math curriculum. There are a lot of things that we can do. There's a lot of, yeah, I'll leave it at that. I just think the problem is not going to go away, and it's going to come up in the future, and there's going to come a point where it's just unsustainable. Yes, we are in good financial place now. For those of you who watched the meetings or were at our last meeting, our auditor talked about the healthy financial position that we're in right now. Part of the savings of slowly reducing our costs through attrition is that our health liabilities for retired teachers are huge and growing, right? So if you want to help with that, you can advocate in other spaces for something like universal health care, right? Like, there are many other options. It's not all on this district, but right now, a lot is falling on the shoulders of the district, right? A lot of mandates from the state, mandates from the federal government. There's a lot that falls on the district's shoulders. We spend about $24,000 per student per year, and that's about average for New York, right? Texas spends $9,000. There's a reason Micron is coming here, right? They know they're getting educated students. They know they're getting educated people. Education is really important. I think our model in the long run is going to be unsustainable, and unfortunately, this is going to come up. Again, the one thing that there are other communities where population fluctuates, and they have schools that will close and reopen as the population fluctuates. It's not unheard of in other places. Our teachers at Layton that are so loved by our students are still going to be in our community, right? They're still going to be in our schools. The beauty, and I said this a few board meetings ago, but I know most people don't pay attention to them. The beauty of the plan right now is that we don't need to, it's the first time that this has come forward, that we can absorb the population in other buildings, right? We could make no changes. We heard tonight, they'll fit right now in the 4 elementary schools that we currently have. We can do this without losing positions, and we can keep those wonderful teachers who make these strong connections to students and maybe begin to do things that would help to expand our curricular offerings. When over the my experience in the district has been, more cuts, right? And that was partly through the 2015 year that happened, right? So that's all I have to say. Is there anyone else who had comments, discussion? Oh.
I just wanted to thank you, Lisa, for pointing out a couple things, and I don't think the problem goes away. We're not just putting our heads in the sand. The reason that we've taken a lot of the recent comments and data into account, for me, has been, I don't know that it's the right time to make this decision until we incorporate a few more groups into the conversation and maybe look a year or two down the road. I agree that we likely will find ourselves in a position to have this conversation again. We have a fiduciary responsibility to the community to spend tax dollars wisely and without waste in some aspect. And if we start thinking about what the previous boards have asked of the superintendent and the district teams, it has been to become more efficient. It has been to look at the growing number of our overall budget and find areas where we can make some efficiencies. We have a lot of studies before us. We've decided to move forward in some areas. I think we've explored this exceptionally well for the information that we have in front of us. And I do think we will have to have additional discussions in the coming years. I don't want the community to think that we're bringing this back up in 5 months. But the idea that we are short-sighted in anyone walking away tonight thinking we couldn't come together as a community to fix the problems that would be presented by having a community-level discussion. If there is a problem about busing in the evenings, if there is a problem about getting kids to the programs they need to get to, we could think of those ideas. We would just need to come together as a whole community.
I did want to say one more thing. No, I'm sorry. Jim, go ahead. No, please. The floor is yours.
Or why I haven't spoke yet.
Yes.
Right? I'm not for this motion. I'll be voting against it. I guess just to add some things, and it's kind of going with our most recent part of the conversation here. We don't have to wait to start looking at things. There are definitely issues coming down the pike. We don't know how enrollment is going to go. We're going to have to see about that, and that's a reality. But the great thing is we're coming up on, we're in November, right? We're coming to December, budget season. We can start actually looking at things about why and how our budget's built. I mean, if we're talking about some of our fiduciary things, I think we can start there. I've been saying it for 2 years. For those who've been paying attention, I'm going to continue to say it. So I do think it's a nice segue to that. I don't have anything really else to add here except a couple things real quick, and mainly it's a thank you to those involved here who are here and those who contacted us outside. I'll kind of parrot what Heidi said. It's very nice to be able to talk to people that are passionate and caring about things, and most importantly, who are experts on things. Parents being experts in their children's well-being, teachers being experts in their duties. When I look at things here and I kind of gauge what's happening here, and from people I talk to, I go through and we talk about our core beliefs. I actually said to Myra, a bunch of people out here have actually read our strategic plan. You've gone through our core beliefs. And when I go, students come first, not right now in this decision do I see students coming first. Not at this moment. When I look at data and evidence inform our decisions. You know, the idea that data is right or wrong, data is interpreted the way it's interpreted. This is one thing that I hang my hat on, if you know. So the data, it isn't there. Pam talked about some of it. I won't reiterate it. I think if I'm checking boxes, people talk about checking boxes. Students first, it's not checked. Data evidence, it's not checked. And then I got this is actually a two-parter. One under core beliefs is community collaboration and partnership are vital to our success. And so one of our priorities and a strategy, I like that it's a strategy, is that we will develop a strong relationship by nurturing, growing parent involvement and community partnerships. So as Pam said, I watched the focus group. I read all the comments, the online comments, hundreds and hundreds of comments. And that little thing we paid for is not too bad because people can go in and rate comments and you could see what's going on. Everything that floated to the top was a no. Anything that floated to the bottom was finances. Pam already covered Zuber saying we're great. I'm talking about budget. We regularly have $4 to $5 million left over every year. And we're not really saying, if we don't cut classrooms, it's not 1.9 million, it's only 600K that we'd actually be saving. I don't see all of this as a right here, right now. So it doesn't check the box there either. Yeah. So I want to end it with this because I've heard a few people, and I get some of the frustration, and I super get not being able to pay attention and keep up on everything. I can guarantee you, this has not been a quick, fast decision. I can go back and look at those previous videos. If not, talk to the few people who are there at every meeting. Please, no, this has been thought out, okay? Now, has it been done the way everybody exactly wants it done? Everybody's different, right? And I get that and respect that. So I just want to say that, I want to thank everybody up here too. I want to thank, Dr. Calvin, his team, everybody who's gone through this. What was great, I'll just end this where I was going to start it. Y'all covered everything I was going to, I had a sheet. I went there, I just started checking off things and it was like, okay, no, you talked about it. No, you talked about it. So thank you for saving me some time. Appreciate it.
Yeah. I just want to say one more thing. There was Michael Kubicki sent us a, I don't know, was it Mrs. Kubicki that was here earlier? Yeah, anyway. Sent us one and he said, well, because I was the one who said it, it was an efficiency study. And he said, we're not the Board of Efficiency. No, we're not. We're the Board of Education. Every decision we make is relative to education. Everyone we make, everything we vote on here tonight is relative to education. But in terms of efficiency directly correlates to our effectiveness and directly correlates to our educational outcomes. So that's why I looked at the efficiency component of that. I also want to thank the administration for all the hard work that they put into this to pull this all together, and Dr. Calvin and everybody that worked on it. And I want to say one other thing. A couple of times, someone said earlier, Dr. Calvin came in here to close a school. I want to set one thing straight. He did not. I was in the room where it happened, okay? I was on the board when we interviewed Mathis. He was here to help observe and look at this district objectively and offer all his expertise to pull us online and focus. And he cares greatly about this. So I take that a little to heart when that's said, because it comes a little bit personal. But it's also about where we're going and the commitment he's made. So I want to applaud him for that and thank him as well. And just realize that wasn't the case. There was not any way, shape, or form brought in to close a school. And I rest my case.
Okay, any further discussion? And so just the last thing is, someone who studies social movements is I do actually appreciate the time that everybody took out to come here tonight. There's voices that we didn't hear, right? We did get some emails that were in support of the decision. Some of the thought exchange actually was in support of the decision. Obviously, people who are highly motivated are going to be the ones who come out and are vocal. And so thank you for taking the time to do that. I appreciate everyone who wrote to us. I think I did not yet respond to the people who wrote to us today, but I will be sending responses for what that's worth to them as well. All right, so seeing no further discussion, we'll move to the vote. I don't know if it's worth doing a roll call. Okay. So this is on the motion to repurpose the Frederick Layton School. Tom Chiappa?
No.
Dave Crisafulli?
No.
Pam Dowd?
No.
Jim McKenzie?
Nope.
Sean Ammecht?
No.
Heidi Sweeney?
No.
Maura doesn't vote, but thank you for your input. As I said, I recognize this is not going to pass. I would have been in favor. I'm not a fan of passing the buck to other boards, but the motion fails.
Yes.
Yeah, so, well. So Diane, just for the minutes, that I would vote yes. I vote yes, but just so you can get that clear in the minutes, but the motion fails. Okay, moving on to the consent agenda. We have the Special Education Board report of 11:15, minutes of the Board Policy Committee meeting, the Board regular meeting and special meeting of November 1st and 4th, budget status report from July, actually a number of reports from July, budget status report, district financial, MD&A report, the treasurer's report, those same reports also for August and for September. In addition, the treasurer's report from September, claims audit report from September 22, OHS extra classroom support, and OMS extra classroom support. Do we have a motion for the consent agenda?
Move it.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, for curriculum, certification of lead evaluators. Karen?
Yep, letter A as presented for your approval.
Move it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Personnel, Bob.
Items A through B, professional staff recommendations as presented.
Can I have a motion for A through B?
I'll make a motion.
Heidi, thank you. Second?
Second.
Sean, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Items C through E, support staff recommendations as presented.
Is there a motion for C through E?
Move it.
Pam, thank you. Second?
Second.
I'll give it to Dave that time. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Items F through H, substitute and temporary employees, extra compensatory positions, and extracurricular volunteer recommendations as presented.
Okay, is there a motion for F through H as presented?
I'll move it.
Thank you, Dave. Second?
Second.
Thanks, Heidi. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, finance. Nancy.
Items A through D as presented.
Okay, items A through D. Is there a motion?
Make the motion.
Thank you, Tom. Second?
Second it.
Thanks, Sean. Any discussion?
Just a huge thank you to C's Farm Market for their donation.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, on, student representative discussion. Maura.
Hello, everyone. So this week, winter sports started for the high school. I believe it also started for the middle school, but they had tryouts prior. I got the chance to stay after with the track team yesterday, and they seem to be doing pretty good. They're optimistic for everything, so that's pretty exciting. States are this week for the girls swimming and diving team. I know a few people who are going, so good luck to them. For seniors and like any juniors who are graduating early, SUNY extended their application fees, so it's still free for the rest of the month. And then, as covered earlier, the drama club had their Clue production, and it went really well. I wasn't able to attend, but I heard that the first night they had over 200 people who bought tickets and attended. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, on items from the board, one of the policies that came up at the facilities discussion was about policy 3280, use of facilities, materials, and equipment. This is tangentially related to our fee structure that we had approved. So is there a motion to move this for discussion?
Yes, I move it.
Is there a second? Okay, let me just be clear. If we don't move this for discussion, our fee structure stays as is. Yeah.
Oh, second.
All in favor? Or any discussion on the motion?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Heidi.
I'm sorry, I left my laptop at home, so I can't open it. And I can't remember, this is the updated one from Erie one? Yeah. Well, it says policy 8320. I
Yes.
didn't know if that was a
So-
typo or.
3280. Oh,
Yeah,
I think, yeah.
the
most-
attachment is 83. It's just transposed. I just wanted to double check.
Yeah, so board docs is correct.
Yes,
What-
okay.
That is wrong. So policy 3280 talks about the use of facilities for external or community organizations. Oh, that's library textbooks, not what I wanted. And one of the things that we had discussed at the policy committee meeting is that I would like to amend this policy so that we can point to our fee structure document, which currently it doesn't, and I think it'll just be important to point people in the direction of where to go. But we may want to have this discussion now. We may want to hold off to another meeting where we have the time to actually discuss. We've had some discussion about our fee structure. We had some consultation with our law firm about what we can and cannot do in terms of fees.
Yeah, because of what you said, and because if policy 8320, textbooks, library materials, is what was posted on the agenda, and that's what the public saw, right? We should have that updated before a discussion in
Yeah.
public. So I'm going to move to table, please.
Okay. So
Is there a
Sean? Go ahead.
That's the wrong attachment.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
why I'm moving to table.
Yeah, I'll second.
Okay, so we will table this to the next meeting. Yep, so
We have a
Jim.
motion, a second.
Yep, Jim made the motion,
I'll second.
Tom seconded. Any discussion on this? This would be a motion to table this for the next meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Do we have a need for executive session tonight? Oh, sorry, other items from the board.
Right, I can't put everything into that other motion. I attended Frederick Layton's Veterans Day recognition ceremony. What an awesome job they did. Thank you so much for always recognizing those folks that have served for us, you know, to give us our free country. So thank you, Layton, and thank you for the invite. And something that had come to my attention through this whole process, we're elected by you community members, by the taxpayers who vote. I always will have your ear, but I believe people didn't know how to get a hold of us. Right now, my email for the school district is pdowd@oswego.org. I will always have your ear. You voted me in. I don't want anybody not to ever be able to get a hold of me. Thank you.
And so, yeah, our contact information is on oswego.org's website. Click on Board of Education. I realize our website is not the most user-friendly one, especially on the computer. It's a little bit more mobile-friendly in some cases, but you can find information there about our upcoming meetings, our agendas, what we're going to be talking about at meetings, the supporting information. A lot of the information is actually public, and you can see what we'll be voting on and discussing as well. All right, so we do not have a need to move to executive. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Jim, is there a second?
Second.
Pam, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you all.